introduce our Honorable Minister. Those of you that are watching CAMNET television from around the world, you can participate on Zoom, you can participate on WhatsApp, you can participate, send us the messages and we'll be able to broadcast them. Honorable Minister, you are welcome to CAMNET television.
Thank you very much, Pastor Chiluba. Thank you to CAMNET for having me. It is indeed a rare honor and privilege that I can feature on your wonderful platform. Amen.
Just in case you are in Chipata, Easterners, sometimes they don't put words together and the names. Our minister is Honorable Cornelious MWEETWA, the Minister of Information and Broadcasting, the minister who is government spokesperson. Honorable, this is your first time to feature on this platform. I know you are our national figure, you are our national minister, but just somebody in Canada, somebody in Bangweulu who doesn't know who Honorable MWEETWA is, just in 3 minutes, can you tell the nation and the nations the background of who Honorable MWEETWA is?
Well, thank you very much, Pastor, for the opportunity. It's difficult to describe myself, but importantly so, I must indicate that I'm a married person with 1 son, and I'm a Christian of New Apostolic denomination by faith, and I started politics, or leadership as I like calling it, at the University of Zambia, where I served in the University of Zambia Students' Union for 2 years. In the first year, as Sports Secretary of the University of Zambia Students' Union. In the second year, as President of the University of Zambia Students' Union. And once I had graduated, I immediately joined national politics and vied for a position in the United Party for National Development as Deputy Party Spokesperson. In joining, I advanced 3 reasons. I said that the UPND had a superior manifesto with a visionary leadership and a team that would implement that manifesto to turn around the economic situation of our country. That was in 2005. And from that time up to 2011, I was Deputy Party Spokesperson of the UPND, a position I wore through elections, intra-party elections. And in 2011, before 2011, in 2006, I was requested to stand in Munali constituency because I had just completed at the University of Zambia as a president of UNZASU. And the university is one of the big polling stations in Munali, and it was deemed that I could have been a good candidate. I turned down that offer because I wanted to learn a little bit more of national politics. Then, in 2008, after the untimely demise of the late Honorable Henry Mutonga, I put my name forward for the candidature of parliamentary, by-election seat for Kanyama constituency in Lusaka. I'll indicate here that that was, testing the waters in terms of national politics and in terms of my party being able to see that I was now become of age, wanting to serve my country in another capacity. In 2011, I was adopted as candidate for Choma Central constituency on the UPND ticket, and remained a member of parliament for Choma Central constituency to date. So I have been in parliament therefore for 2 terms. This is my 3rd term. I've been in parliament for 12 years. I'm in the 13th year. Unfortunately, in 2021, the people of Zambia managed to go for change, and the UPND, the party that I serve, formed government, and that is how I found myself appointed as Minister for Southern Province, a position that I cherished to serve until His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema decided to appoint me as Minister of Information and Media and Chief Government Spokesperson to where we are now. We are on Cabinet TV.
That's a very good brief that you have given us, Minister. If I may ask, who excited you to join politics?
Well, I'll be sincere. I was invited first to join national politics by the late Anderson Kambera Mazoka. In terms of student politics, I was just, self-driven by the desire to serve my fellow students in a diligent and non-discriminatory and fearless and yet firm and polite manner. I always detested as a person to elect leaders on particular promises, yet once they get elected, they forget that they had promised certain things. So it has been something that I've always wanted to sort of participate in leadership circles. And if I were to go a step backwards, I was first inspired to look at leadership at national level. Sometime, I think I was in grade 6, when the late Member of Parliament for Pemba constituency, the late Honorable Chonya, won elections, and that was in the UNIP days, and came to celebrate with us in the community, slaughtered animals, and it was a huge celebration. And when he spoke as to what he was going to do to represent us, I somewhat got the first glimpse of what leadership should be all about. Now, the contemporary leadership is that the late Anderson Mazoka called me to his Malende house as president of UNZASU to go and sit with him so that I could have insights of the vision he was carrying on behalf of the UPND and the people of Zambia. And he inspired me. His leadership inspired me, and that is why 3 days after I completed my education at the university, even before formal graduation, I completed on the 13th of November 2005 my second degree, and on 15th November 2005, I held a briefing where I told the nation I was going into active politics. This comes on the background that at that particular time, I had actually just left as an officer of the Zambia Police, where I served as assistant superintendent in the Zambia Police, against which background I also served as a teacher. I taught briefly at Munali because in my first degree, I am a trained teacher. So this is a composition that we see today, and I was inspired to join national politics by the late President Anderson Kambera Mazoka. But going forward, one man stood amongst many to inspire, me in terms of national leadership, and this is the late Michael Chirufya Sata. And I'm not saying this for the first time. I said it even when he was the president and I was a member of parliament of the opposition. The charisma and the aura with which President Michael Sata carried himself, the astuteness, his political astuteness, his frank talk on national issues without mincing his words, gave him a lot of stimulus to think that leaders must speak their minds, yet being mindful that they speak on behalf of the people. Mm-hmm. And so, this is where we are, Pastor Chilwa.
I am very convinced that the second course you took as a lawyer suits you, because you are speaking with clarity, Honorable Minister. Let's go back to the economy. We're looking at the state of the economy, Honorable Minister. When you look at the governance of UPND, now that you are in power, are you saying that the economy is better? Like you said, it has a better manifesto and better vision. Are you saying the economy now is better than other regimes like the PF, MMD, and UNIP? What would be your comment?
Well, first of all, the starting point is to indicate that governance of a country is a going concern. Mm-hmm. It is block after block. It is like a relay. Each government that is elected in place should run faster and harder to ensure that they cover up for the other, athletes, in this case, a party in government, that may not have performed to the full extent of the expectations of the people, or what is reasonably capable of being achieved. The UNIP government cannot be compared to many governments because they were a foundational government. And therefore, most of the infrastructure we run on today, the University of Zambia, University Teaching Hospital, roads, and so on, it was a UNIP government. And one will also have to realize that the UNIP government was able to perform, because at that time, Zambia's economy was one of the best on the continent. We even would afford to take students to the university who would be receiving, food, including milk. Those who went to university that time still boast of how well they were looked after. So, that was a UNIP government. The UNIP government will be remembered for the indelible and enduring trail and mark they left on the agricultural sector and mining sector of this country. So it performed. Here came MMD in 1991. MMD will be remembered to have been a government or a party that fought the reintroduction of multi-party democracy and promulgated free speech. And additionally, the MMD will be remembered that this is a party which ended the nightmare of transportation blues in the country. We used to queue up. I remember that as a student at the university, then when I went to the university, first went to the university in 1996, we used to queue up somewhere near Town Center Market, near, I've forgotten, it's Southgate now. We used to queue there to wait for buses so that...
That is at Kulima Tower.
That queue you jump in. Then, that was able to be sorted out by the MMD of Frederick Chiluba. Then came the MMD of President Mwanawasa. President Mwanawasa will be remembered, and his legacy is anchored on the restoration of the rule of law and a very steadfast fight against corruption, non-discriminatory, and ensured that even those he was leading the country with knew how he stood in relation with the law, and everybody knew the stance of the president when he said, whoever violates the law will visit you. So he even banned cadres going to follow him, to receive him at the airport, because that was an inconvenience to the public and also a wastage of taxpayers. I mean, a wastage of resources. But President Mwanawasa will be remembered, among others, for being a president who introduced the Farmer Input Support, program, FISIP, which was imported by then Minister of Finance, the late Honorable Magande, from the UPND manifesto, and applied it as though it were an MMD, program to the latter, much to the delight of the UPND, because it benefited the nation. Programs crafted by the opposition are not meant to benefit the opposition. They are meant to benefit the citizens if such programs are able to be taken on board by the government of the day. So FISIP is one of them, and President Mwanawasa will be remembered for that. After President Mwanawasa, of course, will recall the late President Rupia Banda, that he was a very friendly president, and he was a very jovial president, and he will be remembered for peace reigning supreme under his leadership, and for allowing the opposition Patriotic Front and the UPND to convene meetings around the country and campaign freely, and also leaving the democratic space for them to say things they wanted to say through the media, which provided an opportunity for the opposition to freely participate in the governance of their country, and promoted higher levels of accountability and transparency in the management of national resources. And of course, the Patriotic Front took over in 2011, and President Michael Chirufya, of course, will be remembered for many things. For me, he was more of a political icon when you are given his background, that he decided to form a political party almost as a loner, and first introduced one MP to Parliament in 2001 in the name of Honorable Musonda, and MP for Lopososhi, one MP, but he held on and continued diligently in a disciplined political manner to work hard, such that by 2006, he had increased his numbers of members of parliament in the National Assembly of Zambia, creating a ripe opportunity to hold government accountable inside parliament by the members of parliament, and outside parliament by himself, Mr. Mbekosata, which precipitated PF to be able to take the reins of power in 2011. Unfortunately, the nation was robbed of his continued service to his country, which ushered in President Edgar Chagwalungu, former President of the Republic of Zambia. And President Edgar Chagwalungu, I think that I must declare interest here at this stage, that he is a personal friend of mine, because we used to work from one office atmosphere at the roundabout of Addis Ababa Road, there where there is Central Chambers and Masie Chambers. I was working for Central Chambers of Honorable Sakwiba Scotta, and he was working for Masie. We were barely sharing just an entrance, so we are friends. But then with that interest declared, I must also declare interest that I am quite partisan about his performance, but he must be commended that he held the country together. And for me, the greatest thing I'll remember him is that he handed over power peacefully to his brother, President Hakainde Hichilema, in pursuant and in keeping with the Zambian tradition of peaceful transition of power. I think that is a milestone that we as a country will remember him for, notwithstanding other shortcomings that we always highlight about him. He is a human being. He can err just like any other person. And what is important in life, I believe as a Christian, is that when you err, you are able to acknowledge where you went wrong, and you are able to repent That is when you can be forgiven by God. And I believe forgiveness starts with the people you live with, that they forgive you for what you have done. So, all in all, this is how I think I perceive the various governments and their performances. But your question was pinpoint. It was on the economy. And I want to quickly indicate that presently, under the leadership of His Excellency, President Hakainde Hichilema, we have to acknowledge, first of all, that in 2021, New Dawn administration inherited an economy which was performing at negative 2% GDP growth rate, and an economy which was heavily laden with local and international debt, with the debt portfolio almost gravitating to match the national asset portfolio, leading to Zambia beginning to default on its international balance of payment obligations, in short, failing to pay its debt. A lot of debt, particularly local, huge debt, is still outstanding in Zambia, and the majority of the people who are owed are actually former ministers, former members of parliament, former political allies of the previous administration, and they could not manage to pay themselves through their companies and so on, because there was no money to pay for those particular contracts that they had procured. This also speaks to the international debt, where, of course, we have to remember President Edgar Chagwa Lungu and thank him for his push towards infrastructure development, or economic growth, not economic development, economic growth of our country, by putting up various infrastructures around the country. That cannot be swept under the carpet. The only thing that we note, and I must declare interest, I'm partisan on this matter, is that a lot of those projects were procured on credits, which this government, the present government now, is grappling to pay, leaving it in a very difficult situation to be able to match some of its key electoral commitments with the realities of the moment, where the national resource envelope is so restrictive, such that some of the things that would have desired that they are done by now have to be shelved a little bit to allow the economy headroom, fiscal headroom, for it to grow, to allow the government to begin to redirect from debt repayment resources into needy areas, social service, and economic investment sector-based areas, so that we improve the livelihoods of our people. We took over an economy that could not support the education sector of our country. Here we are now, free education. Here we are now, the meal allowances that were taken away from the students in public universities has now been retained to those students. Here we are now, where a government has said men and women who come from peacekeeping missions, their allowances should not be shared between them and the government. Here we are now, where we have a government that has, by and large, paid off all the retirees, except a few isolated instances. Retirees, many of whom had been on the queue, waiting to be paid, some more than a decade, some many years, and a number of them going to the grave without ever seeing a day when they would get their terminal benefit. KCM, arrears, Tazara, arrears, cleared. This is a government which, for the first time in a memorable time, has given farmers almost double the farm gate price of maize in order to stimulate more production, so that there will be more farmers now going to produce more in the wake of the widening demand of our maize in the region, and also the marketing arrangements that the government is creating in place in order to stimulate production with an assured offtake of the product, of the products. So is where we are inter alia.
So, Honorable, if I may interrupt there, are you saying that the economy is performing better now than it was performing in the PF?
Definitely, Pastor. The economy is performing better. Number one, to perform, there must be evidence on the ground. Number one, like I've indicated, meal allowances. The Patriotic Front could not afford within the national resource envelope to pay public university students meal allowances. And they brought, I moved a motion myself at Parliament as former Zasu President, asking that the government restores meal allowance because it had far-reaching ramifications over the living standards of and lifestyle of university students, particularly the girl child. Look at the anguish that parents would go through knowing that they have their children at the university, but they have no meal allowance. They have to scrounge on survival every day. Amidst parents those who had retired, would not be paid their retirement package.
Honorable, I see. Honorable, I see that you are a member of Parliament for Munali even now, because you are so passionate about the university, the students. If we move from the university students, I'm talking about my grandfather in Shangombo, in Kaputa, in Serenge. Speak for those groups. Education and all this, that's your area. Is the economy better for a common man, not students, but for my grandfathers, my grandmothers? Is the economy better now than it was in the previous government?
Thank you very much. I'll just speak 2 examples, or even 3. Number 1, I'll talk about a family in Kaputa, an old lady, an old man, who has been struggling to find money to pay for their children's tuition fee. The government now, because the economy is performing better, is able to pay for them. Number 2, in Kaputa, in Shango, right across the country, in all the 156 constituencies of our country, CDF has been increased from 1.6 in 2021, in 2021, to 30.7 million. And today, the Permanent Secretary for Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development was giving an update that out of the 28.3 million, government has so far disbursed to all the constituencies, and each constituency has received more than 20 million kwacha. That money is spread into sponsorship of bursary sponsorship to students. That money is being invested in construction of schools, clinics, bridges, and the president has directed that no supplier of goods and services should be resourced from outside a local area. So in Kaputa, the people who are providing services, the people who are constructing schools and clinics using CDF are those from within Kaputa. The people who are fabricating desks, because the government has set a target that no child should be sitting on the floor, are the people of Kaputa and any other constituency as such. For that money to be disbursed and all the constituencies together, against the background that in the past there were years when the ruling party, then our colleagues, the Patriotic Front, would secretly fund their constituencies where they have MPs, and the opposition left them unattended to. That is a thing of the past. It means the economy is now even better if it were not a question of discrimination. You will also recall that fertilizer, half of Zambia was cut into two. One region, the southern northwestern region, was receiving 3 bags of fertilizer, and the other region, the northern region, was receiving 6 bags of fertilizer. This new Dawn administration is giving equal number of fertilizers to the whole country. What does it tell you? It tells you that the economy is better off, the government is able to equalize all farmers, unless such unequal distribution was based on discrimination and segregation by the previous administration, which is a view and opinion which I retain and hold. So today, we go to government institutions. Government departments are receiving their funding on time. Schools are receiving school grants on time. It is now just a question of monitoring expenditure patterns to ensure that there is no abuse. Today, as we speak, Pastor, the government is on a crusade of recruiting public service workers. As we speak, about 50,000 public service workers in the first 2 years and 3-4 months of the UPND administration have been recruited, something unprecedented in the recent history of this country. Now, what does this recruitment mean? It means that these police officers, these soldiers, these teachers, these nurses who are being recruited will require to be put on the payroll. You will recall, Pastor, that when we announced recruitment of 30,000 teachers, 30,496 teachers, and also 11,200 health workers. Our colleagues in the opposition said, if we recruit, where will we find the money? It's not possible. He will not manage. Just like meal allowances, just like free education. It was the same explanation. There is no money. How can you manage to find money to take the entire school, the entire country for free? There is no money. As we are in government, we know what we are talking about. They knew what they were talking about because certain expenditures were not a priority and meant that whereas money should have been directed into priority areas, for instance, recruitment. When you recruit teachers, nurses, they will be placed on the payroll, but not just that, they need to go and find decent accommodation and a environment, such as children sitting on desks.
Honorable.
Now, the government is delivering on all these fronts. What does that tell you? It tells you that the economy is functioning. Today, as we speak, NAPSA has disbursed to the fullest. What is called NAPSA or something? Partial withdrawal. It means the economy is back on its feet. The economy is in motion. You are seeing the steady, negotiations that are taking place over the mines, and more investments pouring in that direction.
Honorable, let's.
In Germany, where the president is, announcement of 4 billion euros that Germany is going to pour into this country to invest, and the president made very clear, and I think many Zambians watched where the president was appreciating this kind of investments, but put it very plain to say we now must transition from foreigners, quote unquote, investors coming to invest as complete investors in Zambia and on the continent, to a situation where when investors come to the continent, when they come to Africa, when they come to Zambia, they must look forward to joint ventures. The Zambian economy is leading the way in that direction. The economy is performing. There could be, and definitely there are, 1 or 2 areas that could, if one picks it as an isolated measure of determining economic performance, might decide to say, well, here I think the economy is not performing. But when you look at the broader picture, when you look at what the government has been able to do in the 2 years of its administration, and you begin to envisage this particular performance over a period of 10 years, there can be no doubt that Zambia will be a different place altogether to live in.
Honorable, let me bring you back home, where you hold 2 important positions, one of which as government spokesperson and minister. We have seen on Camnet, on different medias, UPND members complaining of being neglected by those of you who are now in power. What is your comment?
Thank you, Pastor. I wish I knew that that was coming through. I would have shared for you and indeed the station to play what the late president of the UPND, Mr. Anderson Kambera Mazoka, said way before one could think that he would not get into government. He addressed UPND supporters and said, it is important to look after your supporters once you form government, but that political handouts is not the way to look after your supporters. There must be a better way so to do, one which is lawful and one which does not come at the expense of other citizens. Translated to what is happening presently, Pastor, President HH has insisted that he wants to create a Zambia of equality, that there should be no group which should enjoy an advantage on account of political affiliation of being in the ruling party. The idea of having cadres like we saw in PF, where the rest of the nation is plagued with economic challenges. National Housing Authority workers would go for 10 months without salary. Council workers would go 6 months, 10 months without a salary. Yet you have cadres waving dollars. Ka something yaka, ka something. Memorela that kwetulechu, mulechu la ruenu. Febale bombana barungu, ifindu filife wino. Nibana ba bosi wandi bachiru bana ba ewa jipera ka something ka $14 million dorito. $14 million. They even go to the extent of burning dollars, burning money, jumping on mattresses, opening boots full of money, and saying this is just for a weekend, when the rest of the nation were suffering, when many of the young people were graduating from institutions of learning, colleges and universities, and could not be employed, other than asking them to join the bracket of cadreship, calling each other commander. Come on. That kind of state of affairs was a very, very sad state of affairs. Therefore, the president has said, we are with you, our supporters. You are not on your own. The UPND cadres are not on their own. They are with their government that they formed. And they formed this government so that it can create opportunities for them and for the rest of the nation on equal footing. And what has the government done? It has asked youth, particularly, and women, to form cooperatives. And I can tell you, cooperatives have been formed. Some doomsayers were saying, these cooperatives won't work. I can now ask you, Pastor, to raise your antenna of listenership on what is going on in society. People have stopped complaining about cooperatives because they have realized that cooperatives are working. What I have done myself in Choma, as an example of what is happening right across the country, we have formed cooperatives in the urban, wards of Choma. For instance, we asked youth to form cooperatives, and Through CDF, we gave them loans, and they bought trucks which they use for refuse or garbage collection. And each cooperative coming from a particular ward, they have been given by the council authority to be the ones collecting, garbage in that particular locality. And monthly, when residents pay either a 30 kwacha or 50 kwacha, depending on the status of the residential area, that money directly goes to this in the account of the cooperative to enable the cooperative, in the estimation of things, to pay. Under 1 year, they will have paid back the loan, remain with that truck, continue to work. The most important thing here, Pastor, is even if that truck you finally grind to a halt, it wears out, the business mentality which you have been ingrained in the mindset of the young people is a life investment of this country, in the thinking and mindset shift of our young people, that they must be on the lookout for opportunities and not political handouts, because political handouts are short-lived. You must be able to teach a citizenry to fish and not give them fish. That way you create a stable, sustainable society with opportunities where they can get a gainful and decent income to keep their families going forward.
Honorable Minister, thank you for that, and I pray that, dear cabinet viewers, you are following. This is national matters. If you have a question, just write me through that number which is just here. If you can, then I'll read, and the Honorable Minister will be on hand to answer. Honorable Minister, you talked about the government of UPND being a government of promises, and when they make promises, they fulfill. Before you came into power, you said, when we come, we are coming to reduce the currency of the kwacha. But we are seeing it going to 23, and it's going upwards. What could have gone wrong? Why is it that the kwacha is failing to stabilize? I know you are a lawyer, you are not an economist, but being the government spokesperson, what would you say has gone wrong?
Well, first of all, Pastor, thank you for that question. Indeed, that promise was made, and the administration of President HH is still stuck with that promise, meaning we have not done away with that promise. Every effort will not be spared by administration to ensure that the right economic policies and governmental measures are put in place to regress this situation where the kwacha is trading towards the number you have mentioned. And the 23 kwacha you mentioned, the pastor, that is where the kwacha was trading in 2020, 2021. So we have not yet, broken the record. We are still within, but then the issue is we must do better. Now, for the kwacha to perform, firstly, it relies on trade, productivity first, and trade in terms of what is it that we produce and export, so that we are able to stimulate and bring into the country a forex which is going to come and stabilize the relationship of the kwacha with other currencies that the kwacha trades with. That is the starting point. And I can tell you here that when you have had the mining sector in the state that it has been, where KCM was grinding to a halt, and it is only now that we are coming out of that quagmire and malaise of KCM and Mopani, leading to dwindling, production levels of copper, which is our #1 forex earner. It brings pressure on the kwacha. When you are going to have a situation like it is now, where government has put in place a measure to ban export of maize and mealie meal, it means that window where we are receiving forex has been shut, but for a good reason. It is because the government wants to commit a lesser evil in order to avoid a greater evil of running short of the staple food in the country. When trade was going on with DRC, with Tanzania, with individual citizens trading, yes, they could have been trading in their own personal capacities, but when they take maize across, they were bringing back the dollar, which was coming into circulation. So the point I'm making here is your levels of productivity and production, the goods and services that you export determine the volatility or instability of your domestic currency. That is the current situation in the country, and we envisage that with mining, companies now coming on board, stabilizing and focusing towards the production of government's estimated volumes of 3 million metric tons per year, we can only expect good news as people in terms of kwacha stability. With expected bumper harvest this coming season, wherein as we speak now, fertilizer has already been dispatched to almost all the districts across the country. Unlike it used to be sometime before, where fertilizer and seed would be distributed in February. Now fertilizer has already been distributed. And to augment that situation, the government has opened an agriculture credit window to allow civil servants, those who may want to be involved in agriculture, particularly production of maize, and also other citizens. And you saw last week that almost all the banks in the country had a meeting with the president and the government, where they went to map out how they will support the funding of this particular scheme. It means more production of maize. If you have more production, more export, more forex. As we speak, the government, the Zambian people are proud that United Chemical Fertilizers are now net exporters of fertilizer. We saw them export to Botswana, having satisfied the national average fertilizer requirements to do with D compounds. That export speaks to more forex coming into the country, and with all the right policies that are being promulgated by this administration, I can assure you that we are headed for better times to come. For now, I can even disclose here that companies such as United Chemical Fertilizers are happy that the government has come up with an affirmative position of prioritizing buying Zambian, where such goods and services can be locally resourced. Before,
but
this fertilizer, which is by United Chemical Fertilizer and Nitrogen Chemicals of Zambia, the window would have been opened for competition with companies that are bringing fertilizer from outside, meaning you are exporting jobs. I think that, Pastor, this government needs prayers from well-meaning Zambians, from men of God like you, to give it more wisdom and courage to continue to put in place economic policies and measures that stand to benefit our people, and like paying attention to politics of populism, wanting to respond to political situations in order to look popular at the detriment of the economy, at the detriment of the next generation whom we stand to hand over this country to.
Honorable Minister, you're talking about, I won't mention the names of the companies, but you as government spokesperson, some of the companies that we see doing well are owned by foreigners. and some of the Zambians that could have complemented the vision of your government. Others have been dragged into charges of proceeds of crime and whatever. In short, do you have prominent companies that you'd say, Pastor, we are promoting growth economically, this company, that company, that company, and all these are indigenous and they are running to build the nation of Zambia? Because I've always said here, Honorable Minister, that China was not developed by Malawans. Japan was not developed by Africans. If you as a government, and I've been saying this from the time President Chiluba was there, may he so rest in peace, President Sata, if you as government, you don't put priority on Zambian companies, which are indigenous, I can assure you, Honorable Minister, I don't have to go to University of Zambia to get my economics degree, but there will still be capital flight here. Because when I make money, it will be here in Zambia. I want to bank it in Swaziland, in South Africa, I'll bank it here because I'm a Zambian. What would you say to the Zambians that have made it, and some are dragged into court, others are scared to come out in the open because for fear of proceeds of crime?
Thank you very much, Pastor, for that a very important question. The starting point is the following. Number one, what is an indigenous Zambian company? An indigenous Zambian company is a legal entity, a person, a legal entity that is registered here in Zambia, regardless of who the shareholder is. That is an indigenous Zambian company. Second, an indigenous Zambian company whose main shareholders are foreigners should be encouraged, because our economy right now is in such a state that we require foreign direct investment support in this country to promote exploitation or utilization of the potential of the economic endowment, natural resource endowment that Zambia is possessed with. And when a company has set up in Zambia, notwithstanding it having foreign shareholders, it means that such a company is creating job opportunities for our young people. And more importantly, Pastor, when you have companies performing acts of, how can I put it? Should I say capital flights, where they are making money here, but they are shipping it, or profit shipment, it is incumbent upon government to promulgate rules and regulation, laws that ensure that such kind of practices are curbed. Look, for instance, what South Africa did. They realized that Zambians, in Zambia, all the motor vehicle assembly companies were shut. So Zambians now who want to buy motor vehicles, many of them cannot afford brand new motor vehicles. They rely on second-hand, mostly Japanese motor vehicles, and they buy them from Durban, and they have to drive all the way from Durban to Lusaka. Therein they saw an opportunity, and they crafted a law to say we are banning driving of motor vehicles, second-hand motor vehicles in our country. If you want you buy motor vehicles, they have to be shipped on a low-bed truck. By the time they were coming up with that law, they had already put in place companies that began to provide such a service and making Zambians pay through the nose. Those are some of the things we need to do. When we see that foreigners are coming, making money out of our head, and then they are shipping the profits, it is incumbent upon the citizens to get their government to account and begin to put in place such measures. I can tell you now and disclose quite prematurely that the government is looking at refining and the legal regime in the mining sector. For instance, to start with, the exportation of precious stones. We have one of the companies or two that when they trade in those precious stones, the money that they are paid has to come to Zambia to hit the company's accounts here in Zambia before it gets to be expended. And government had talks with that particular sector a few weeks ago as to now how this should not be just a free will and volition of such companies, but that it should be regulated as a legal requirement. Also, the government is talking about value addition right now. That we cannot continue to export sand or ore. We want companies to come in this country to value add. That is a starting point in ensuring that we retain resource value in the country. We retain money. We also do have in Zambia a situation where a number of service providers in the hospitality industry, for instance, are foreigners, and you find that you go to this particular hotel, you swipe for your accommodation, and the money is reflecting in an account in South Africa or elsewhere. Those are some of the issues that the government now is considering as to how they must be looked into to ensure that trade which is happening in Zambia, the money must hit Zambian accounts and ensure that there is liquidity in the Zambian economy. Pastor, there are many things that we are looking at. This is a new government. This is a listening government. This is a government which does not just want the opposition and other stakeholders to criticize from a mountain top. This is a government which wants that when the opposition have got ideas, let them call for dialogue with government. Let them pen down their ideas and present them to government for governmental consideration. In the like manner that the UPND in the opposition would do at times, they would come up with an alternative budget, clearly giving pointers to government as to where government should have prioritized national resource allocation. You will recall that even under the Patriotic Front, President HH would write to President Michael Sata, asking to advise government on certain issues. And you will recall the last time President HH wrote as opposition leader to the government that he was answered in one line in a very derogatory and vulgar language. And that is how the UPND said, well, we can no longer engage for advice since we are being ridiculed. We now have in place a president who is a Christian, a president who frowns upon inflammatory language, a president who will listen, a president who wants to embrace criticism. That is why he has gone to lengths to even repeal the law relating to defamation of the president. He has also now, through his cabinets and through Ministry of Information, taken to Parliament access to information bill in order to enhance the spectrum within which citizens will participate in the governance of their country and also hold the government accountable. This is a government willing to engage with citizens, willing to listen to citizens. Unfortunately, this space which has been created to enhance freedom of speech and expression is being abused, particularly by the opposition. You are seeing the insults that are being held. You saw yesterday on one particular TV station where the opposition, paraded themselves, particularly they are my friends at them on TV. And the opposition were even using such divisive language to say HH has lost popularity. Only his village mates remain supporting him. I mean, who uses such kind of language in a civil, a country like that? That is lost opportunity to engage government and promulgate policies which you think as opposition stand better as alternative to what currently the government is doing. But we understand we are coming from a situation of politics, of populism, of politics and governance, of politics and political rhetoric, and not policy contestation of ideas. This is a challenge our colleagues in the opposition now find themselves. If
Honorable,
I asked you, from all the engagements that the opposition has been having, including the debates they are having, other than those bordering on politics as we know it, are you able to pinpoint that on such a day they held a press conference, they raised the following policy challenges that the government has put in place and have told government to veer off 1, 2, 3 policies and instead do the following A, B, C, D, 0?
Honorable, talking about the opposition, I don't know what you would say yourself, but you have been quoted. Whether it's this technology, people putting their words in your mouth or not, but those social media, you've been quoted that you are happy about the division in PF. And also, people say that Mao Samba is supported by the government. Because if he's not supported by the government, why would he have armored cars at this conference in Mulungushi? Why would he have police officers waiting for him at the airport when there are several opposition leaders who travel? They've never received such welcome. And this is where they attach the government interference in the local or internal political parties. What would be your comment vis-a-vis in Mao Samba arriving under police protection at the Mulungushi protection, and what would you say? Is UPND interfering in the PF? Are you dividing the political party?
Thank you very much, Pastor, for the to clarify those matters. Number one, the statement attributable to me that I said I'm the sponsor of anarchy in the patriotic front. I made that statement as a party spokesperson of the UPND a long time ago. That is when I made that statement. I was not Minister of Information. And, Pastor, and I can even share the link with you, but the citizens out there know, because it was live broadcast. What I said is that we as UPND have got nothing as a party to do with the wrangles that have rocked the patriotic front. Nothing whatsoever. Those are their internal family differences, which they must be able to resolve, because those wrangles being experienced in the leading opposition, the largest opposition political party, have a bad mirror image on the state of our democracy. Then I went on to say, however, if they want to insist that UPND are the ones behind those wrangles, I want to clarify that UPND are not involved. I am the one who is involved. If at all, PF is so weak as to be infiltrated by government. That is what I said. And I went on to say, we in the opposition, for more than 20 years when we were in the opposition, there is no single day. We went to a number of conventions. There is no single day when we held a press conference and told the world that the ruling MMD or the ruling Patriotic Front have infiltrated us. They are funding anarchy. They have sponsored people to promulgate division amongst ourselves. Zero. Because we were principled. We were disciplined. Even when the Patriotic Front, even when the MMD would hunt our members of parliament and appoint them as ministers without recourse to the party that sent them to parliament, so that their royalty, political royalty, should remain with the party that sponsored them if it were requested to submit their services to government of the day. There is no day we charged those members. Dreyford Monde was there. Honorable Siamonene was Minister of Defense, Ondela, and so on. There is no single day when we picked pen and paper and raised a charge against them. There is no day we suspended them. There is no day we envisaged causing a by-election. What did we do? We told the nation, these people have gone against the party. Now, because we do not want to cause a by-election, we shall leave them to serve their 5-year mandate. At the end of the year, at the end of the 5 years, we shall go back to the electorates and tell the electorates that these people betrayed your confidence, and then the people will have a final say. That is what we did. Why is it that in PF, when they have their own personal wrangles as an entity, they want to drag UPND, they want to drag the entire government, they want to drag all the citizens, including the entire world, running to diplomats, calling for diplomats to come to their aid. The same people they have labeled as imperialists. The same people they have called capitalists, who have imposed President HH on Zambians, when they actually know that he was elected by Zambians and the Zambian vote counted. So how can we be involved in those wrangles, Pastor? So what I said really was made within the sphere of politicking, as it were. And even my colleagues in PF, they know. We talk around each time we meet. If they ask me, I find them and then I will say, oh, give them a Fanta each if we meet at the restaurant at Parliament. Give them a Fanta each, buying for them as part of sponsoring confusion in their party. So them, they know that we actually joke around this particular subject. But coming to the issue of Miles Sampa, firstly, it has to be recalled that Miles Sampa was a candidate of PF, presidential aspirant, in 2015 by-elections. And PF were in government. Honorable Miles Sampa won the first round of the elections that were later to be nullified after he had left, rushing to come to Lusaka from Mulungushi, Kabwe, to come and prepare for filing in of nomination as a presidential candidate for PF. Behind, they overturned those elections, and by show of hand and acclamation, former President Edgar Chagwa emerged as a candidate for those particular elections. Are you saying, or is anyone saying, the UPND in the opposition sponsored Miles Sampa to stand in the Patriotic Front and cause confusion? Similarly, after 2021 elections, President Edgar Chagwa, by a letter I think dated 26th September, August 26th August 2021, after a change of government, wrote to the Secretary to Cabinet indicating that he had retired from politics And as per the requirement of the PF Constitution, they needed to go to a convention by their own rules and regulations, which convention attracted a number, I think about 7 candidates, who paid 200,000 kwacha each, including Mr. Mausa. And I can now state here, Pastor, that I'm aware that Honorable Mausa traversed the country, all the 156 constituencies. He went to meet the PF structures and asked for a vote so that he can become president of the Patriotic Front, a position he has so much wanted to occupy since 2015. Are you saying the UPND are behind are behind Honorable Mayo Samba wanting to be president of PF from 2015 up to now? And Honorable Mayo Samba paid 200,000. That is not little money. Are you saying that at that time there was not even any allegation of the UPND meddling? Are you saying it's UPND that gave Mr. Mayo Samba 200,000 to go and pay? The issue of the confusion, wrangles that have robbed the Patriotic Front emanate from their own deliberate failure to adhere to compliance of their own rules and regulations vis their constitution. You will recall, Pastor, that I had told the nation a long time ago, more than 1 year ago, to say the Patriotic Front are shunning holding their convention because we have information indicating that President Edgar Chagwa Lungu has told his supporters to frustrate holding of a convention because he wants to buy time so that somewhere in 2024 or somewhere there, when it is right, he comes back to say, I've returned to active politics, because he still yearns to be PF president and also still misses being president of Zambia, because he was enjoying himself as president of Zambia. I told the nation that that was the situation, and I think you recall that because Cabinet is always there to cover our events. Even when I was speaking as a UPND, Cabinet always comes to cover, because for us, there is no TV or radio or media house that we send away that you can't cover us because you are pro-opposition and so forth. Nothing like that. So, the wrangles of PF are a club affair. They should not drag the whole nation and the entire globe in their own failure to adhere to their rules that they should have held their own convention, which has now found themselves in a more divided state. In Tonga, Pastor, and as a pastor, I know you understand various languages. We say, tole ntole, ujani agali ule, meaning procrastination. If you procrastinate, you may end up being caught up by something you did not plan for, while trying to do this which you should have done earlier. Second issue, the issue of police at the PF Secretariat. Firstly, you have mentioned armored cars. Those are the vehicles that are available for police to use that PF were buying, and not buying the Land Cruiser, friendly Toyota Land Cruisers, the one that were bought by CDF that the president was commissioning a few days ago. You will see now, if there will be some kind of requirement for police to go somewhere, they will not use those armored cars. They will use the Toyota Cruisers, which have a civil presence. And that is what administration has done. The Patriotic Front were buying those scary armored cars in order to instill fear in the minds of the citizens, to intimidate citizens. That is why even when we went to elections, you saw military, for the first time, the Zambian military being rolled across the country, heavily armed to the teeth, to instill fear. But you know, Pastor, how God works. it worked to our advantage, because the unruly thugs, political thugs who have inadvertently, going by their usual practice, caused anarchy at polling stations. Because of the presence of soldiers, the elections were peaceful. God must be glorified, and that is why Zambia as a Christian nation must be upheld, because God works in strange ways. Who would have thought in their minds as human beings that it was God working, that for the first time soldiers should go out and man polling station, as if there was an imminent threat, a national threat. But God works in strange ways. So that is the situation. The Patriotic Front,
what
they are
about
buying those armored cars, and they are the ones still available to be used now that the new Dawn administration has bought these new Land Cruisers.
What about
Pastor, sorry, which I must not forget to include here, is that lawlessness anywhere in Zambia will attract police to be present. There is no place that is excluded from amenability of the long arm of the law. So when the police received a writing from somebody holding himself out as Secretary General of the Patriotic Front, Mr. Ngona, who wrote to police to say, we are now going to take over our secretariat. We request for police presence to avoid a face-off of confrontation between ourselves and the other faction of the Patriotic Front.
Maybe that honorable...
The police responded, and had the police not gone there, and there was skirmishes, there was going to be bloodshed, somebody lost life and property lost, who could have been blamed? The police. And
that one...
to apply the rule of law to the latter. As for police at the airport or elsewhere, I'm not aware of police presence at the airport, but I want to indicate that Mr. Miles Samba, anyway, I will say this without his authority, but because national matters must be clarified in full. Mr. Miles Samba has requested for protection because he has received a lot of threats, including death threats, from some of his colleagues in the Patriotic Front. And some of them, one day I will name them, because some of them we have their recordings, where they are warning harm on the life of Mr. Miles Samba. Now, this administration has a responsibility to safeguard life and property, which mandate is to be executed by Zambia police. Pastor, if someone is going to, post to you, assuming we are in the opposition, they were in the opposition now, you may not have had the freedom, to freely interview me on Cabinet. Otherwise, thugs would come to that studio and ask him, Pastor, if he is
but you remember, Honorable,
someone therefore threatens you, Pastor, and you ask police to protect you. The police, Zambia police, will be on hand to give protection to you because you are a Zambian citizen.
You remember, Honorable, that we are on record that Cabinet television station is the only TV station in this nation that gave UPND 45 live transmissions unedited. And when I was asked, I said I'm a pastor for both President Lungu and President Dechech and everyone who is there. We are on record. If you remember that, Honorable MWEETWA, that it's only Cabinet TV that opened the waves for you as UPND, and Thabo Kawana was always here. And I must confess that thank God for the Zambians, nobody came to storm here, nobody came to harass me, but we opened the waves for you.
Yes, Pastor, and we have never thanked you. And I think that our thanks should be beyond the words we must produce to say, thank you, Cabinet, for the wonderful work that you did. And we also thank God for people like you, who standing in the name of the Lord, would stand to tell people the truth. I'm a pastor, I'm doing my work. I'm a pastor for the opposition, I'm a pastor for the ruling party. This particular TV channel is a Christian channel, it is not partisan. There are very few who can have this kind of combination and be able to get away with the brutality that was pertaining in the country at that particular time. And you are 1 out of a million. And I think it is because of, being a Christian television network or Christian-based television, network. You saw how Prime TV was closed. You saw how Movie TV was closed. You saw how Post newspaper was closed. You saw how journalists would, be beaten, and things that one would never think can be done by one human being to another would be done. The entire media fraternity was living in fear. Those 45 live broadcasts that COMNET gave, they did not give to UPND. They gave to the people of Zambia in real terms, and that was meant to save humanity, to the glory of God. Because I shudder to think what Zambia would have been today if those cadres who had taken over Intercity and were the ones who constituted themselves into an illegal authority to collect levies from bus stops and markets, and were wearing military regalia, calling themselves names America 1, America 2. They were moving armed, and the government sponsored buying of double cab Toyota Land Cruisers, 12 in number, that they were using when they are moving together, and not buy those vehicles for police or for the council to be moving around markets and bus stops to be collecting levies, but those cadres were the ones. They would sit on top there. They move from Intercity to go and receive their leadership at the airport. The whole road would be chaos, it would be anarchy. I ask the people of Zambia that we should be sincere and speak to our inner souls, that if our colleagues, the past administration, had continued, and all factors being equal, that the thuggery, political hooliganism and cadreism, radical and violent in nature, continued today, Pastor, that tie you are putting on, which is reddish, like mine, you would not put it to go to ShopRite and buy milk, which has been reduced now. It is selling at less than 230 kwacha. Because if you meet these cadres, they will be ask you, Babas, that kind of language. Going to attack that lady, you remember, in Chirenje, the one who was selling somewhere there in Chirenje, Kapulonga. At one time, she was selling near your church. That is where she used to sell. She was attacked on a number of occasions by those same cadres driving those Land Cruisers. A woman, a single mother, trying to make ends meet by selling mangoes, by selling katapa, by selling carpenter on the road, beaten and left for the dead, hacked by pangas. Why? Because she was wearing UPND regalia. Zambia is better off today, and we glorify God. We thank COMNET that they came through at a time when no other could come through to give 45 lives, broadcasts that gave impetus and finality to government change in 2021.
Amen. Honorable Minister, I'm going to open the lines to the people of Zambia, and probably you do me a favor, Honorable Minister. I'm sure they've heard and they are still hearing. I'm going to open up the lines so that my director can give me the text messages that have been sent, and if you can take a minute on each, it will be wonderful. But before I receive the first text message, Honorable Minister, you talked about how President Levi Mwanawasa, may he so rest in peace, brought order that there was no Kadarism, people being inconvenienced on the roads to the airport and everything. What would you say about the inconvenience between Community House and State House every morning, every afternoon, and sometimes in the evening, and the police people lining up? Isn't that an inconvenience? And also, you are saying we reduce the economy, no much spending. How much does it cost? Have you taken an estimate how much it costs for the police officers to line up between Community and State House, the motorbikes and fuel and all that? And within that same question, the precedence has been set. If tomorrow Honorable MWEETWA becomes president and you are living in Choma or Mazabuka, are we saying that we should have choppers to come from Choma every day to bring you here, and now State House should not be a place where if I desire to leave, I should abandon it? After that, Honorable, the text messages will be coming. Just say something about the inconvenience.
Thank you very much, and that is well noted, Pastor. Save to indicate that, number one, there is no law that prohibits the president to live in the house where he lives, and the distance from State House to his house is reasonable. From rough estimation, it is within 3 kilometers. That is not too long a distance. And for police to provide that security, that is provided for by law. And also, it has to be underscored here that once government changed, like any other administration, what they do, they go and refurbish State House, the government houses, they buy a fleet of new vehicles. Now here is how it is, Pastor. According to Ministry of Infrastructure, the moment the president formed government, a bill was presented to him to authorize refurbishment of State House to the tune of 14 million kwacha, if I'm not mistaken. If it is not billion, it's million, actually. That amount of money, the president said, under the current economic circumstances, this is too much money to spend on refurbishing a house for my comfort. My house is already comfortable where I am staying. And to buttress this point, the president went ahead also not to receive a salary to date. This is a president who does not know the taste of government money. He makes his money by when he has a weekend or a holiday. He goes to his farms to go and look after his goats and animals, cattle, so that his home economics continue to sustain him. Therefore, he is subsidizing the presidency of the Republic of Zambia. Further, this is a president who banned us ministers. All of us were driving second-hand motor vehicles that we inherited from the previous administration. Very unprecedented for the first time. Those are issues which we would also want to be held to account, to say, you ministers, HH and your ministers, why is it that every government that has come into office They buy a fleet of new vehicles, GX, PX, the best on the market. You have decided to use those old vehicles, which sometimes are breaking down along the way. You are risking the safety of your ministers. Can you explain why you are doing all this when in fact tradition is clear? So there is a give and take. There will be advantages on one side and disadvantages, but the overall picture is that there is no law, and the president, I think, is compensating in terms of his hard work, in terms of the many areas of prudence that he has ensured under his administration, to ensure that if there is an extra cost that could have arisen out of that daily movement, that 2-kilometer stretch, the president has saved money in many areas in a manner that another president would have been staying in State House and wasting taxpayers' money, and we, the citizens, would be the ones to suffer.
Okay, you haven't talked about the inconvenience, Honorable Minister, about us, because I know that one day my friend Bishop John Mambo and I, we were driving to some place, and we were stopped because the presidential motorcade was coming. We were late. We really wanted to go where we were going, but we were stopped. So I'm just talking about inconvenience, and also the costs of fuel for motorbikes, those Land Cruisers on daily basis, just within the distance of 3 kilometers. But we'll leave that for the other time. I'm thankful that you are saying there is no law. My interest also, Honorable, is access to information bill. As lawyer, and I know that governments have come and gone, they always avoid this access to information bill. What is your position as UPND?
Well, thank you, Pastor. For us, under the able leadership of President HH, it is about walking the talk. This is a president who is determined to walk the talk. A number of laws that he promised to be amended has already shown the way. Defamation of the president, repealed. Access to information, we have brought it to Parliament at a time when many were not even expecting. Probably they were thinking it is one of those pieces of legislation that we are going to behave like other previous administrations have behaved, that during campaigns as opposition, you commit to access to information. Once you form government, you turn around, like we saw. My colleagues, I moved private members' motion in Parliament to urge the executive then to bring the access to information to Parliament, to enhance accountability and transparency in the management of public affairs, particularly to do with national resources. It was taught to us at Parliament and the nation that the government would not proceed because there were 14 acts of Parliament that were already subsisting and operational that would be at variance with an envisaged IATI law. Now we have brought that law ourselves to Parliament. We haven't amended any other act. And we have created an opportunity because at Parliament, as we speak, that the act has been referred to Parliament and a date has been given within this coming month, and I think it is, if I'm not mistaken, it must be 7th of December, where the committee must now report to the whole House to say, we have received submissions from all stakeholders, the media, and I encourage you, Pastor, to write to the clerk of the National Assembly, being a media house, to be part of the stakeholders to make submissions to your law. This is how good laws are supposed to be made. And once it is brought to the House, within this coming month, the House will vote upon it to pass it or not. Now, it will be strange for the executive to bring a law to Parliament and shoot it down when it is time to pass it. Therefore, it is expected that this particular piece of legislation will go on as scheduled, given that it is based on a simple majority, vote, for which we have got numbers as governing UPND, and therefrom operationalize the same. This is in keeping with what the President HH had promised the nation, and I think this far, if I were the only vote passed in Zambia, all of you 2.8, or in 2026 maybe there will be 5 million, you turn me into one. President HH would win a landslide in 2026 because me, as a chairman for African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption for 10 years, every time I was given an opportunity to speak on every anti-corruption day, which is the 9th of December, I would always call for the ATI to be taken to Parliament. And look at how God works. After being the one, working with civil society, calling for government to bring ATI, God must use me to be the minister at that critical moment, to be the one to move a motion bringing the ATI to Parliament. I think it was not a coincidence. It is deliberate in the scheme of things of God to ensure that once we take that law, it should not be, there should be no reverse gear. No reverse gear. Should be, a good government should, when it comes to legislation, should be like a plane. A plane has no reverse gear. It just moves forward. So this is the situation as it is, and I think that I would vote for President HH primarily for two things, among others. One, the peace that is reigning supreme in this country, that even when UPND will leave office, they will leave and hand over a peaceful government, a peaceful country, a country where our children grow up knowing the value and virtues of peace, unity, and love, in line with a Christian nation state. For me, is even that reason alone, without considering any other, I would vote for President HH.
I thank you.
Bring ATI.
I thank you, Honorable Minister.
Recovery. You bring about freedom of the media.
I thank you, Honorable Minister.
In 2026, we shouldn't have campaigns. Let's just go and say, no, we are voting in line with the law, but the winner is already known because of his performance.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I'm sure the viewers there are hearing you loud and clear. Mr. Director, please give me the text messages. Let me read for the Honorable Minister. Good evening, Mr. MWEETWA. With the issue of debt restructuring, can you update the people of Zambia over the debt? What is the current position between IMF and the government? The opposition are saying the deal has gone bad. Kasonde Mwenda was saying the IMF has lost faith in the current government. When is KCM becoming operational? When is Mopani opening as well? Give me another text message, Mr. Director, without picking which one is good, which one is bad, just offload. What is your honest thought on these movements of President is undertaking? Is this how a president should look for investments? Does it mean we don't have local solutions to our problems? Or maybe we are indirectly admitting that we have no plan, solution of our own. Howard Piri. Thank you, Mr. Director. Mr. Honorable Minister, would you, okay, I'll read this one. I would want the, okay, thank you, my director. We'll read that later. I would want the Honorable Minister to answer to the 2 text messages. Honorable, would you remember the questions that were there?
Yes, thank you very much, President. I would like to thank our dear participants on this particular program for those questions. One, the IMF, just like we saw this morning, my good friend, Ambassador Emmanuel Mamba, informed or misinformed the nation that the IMF, the debt restructuring has collapsed. The IMF talks and negotiations are flat-footed. Quite to the contrary, within the same day today, I'm sure you have seen what has happened, that the IMF has entered into a certain level of agreement with the Zambian government today, not yesterday. So, the misinformation which was pertaining in social media, that the IMF talks, the debt restructuring have collapsed, have been responded to by the IMF themselves. So, I think that it was there on, it must have been on Cabinet News as well, because that is a fundamental milestone for the country. So, that issue was occupying our social media space. And before I could even have headache of answering it, the IMF have answered because of the high staff level agreement that they've entered with the Zambian government just today. The issue of Mopane and KCM, is it Mopane in particular? The Minister of, I was privileged to have been with the Minister of Mines and Minerals Development 2 weeks ago in Kitwe at the International Mining Index, where he gave hope to the nation that a deal was going to be struck for Mopane. And I think that Mopane and KCM, I just have to put my information straight. One of them, where he again was being taken to task that there was no written agreement with Mopane and with the investors. That is how it is when you are, coming up with these agreements. You first agree verbally, then you reduce your agreement into writing. Once your lawyers have exchanged documents, they have seen that your agreement is as was agreed in verbal. Let me not make this a long answer. The movements on the ground this far, already we saw last week, the actual signing between the investor and the government Republic of Zambia pertaining to this particular mine. So I think that we are headed in the right direction, and very soon these mines must be coming back on stream to becoming full operation with those agreements being penned down physically. The third question, the president is the presidential movements around the world. Is the president traveling too much? Let me clarify this, that the president is invited to a lot of meetings around the world, and many of them he sends the vice president to represent him, he sends ministers to represent him. Now, some of the meetings, depending on how the content of that meeting, those meetings that have to do with the economy that Zambia stands to benefit if the president is there to make representations at those meetings, such as the one which is currently in Germany. And the nation saw that the president was a panelist, and it relates to investment on the continent. The president has to attend, primarily for two reasons. Number one, the president is invited not as a mere participant to many of these international meetings, because Zambia is a role model in terms of peaceful transfer of power, and also the president has raised the bar of leadership. He has provided leadership not just to Zambia as a country, but to the continent and the entire global village. Look, even to go and give Africa's position on Russia-Ukraine war, the entire African continent chose five presidents. One of them was your president, the Zambian president, because of the elevated stature that Zambia occupies on the international stage as a peaceful and stable political environment. One. Two, as having a leader who is bringing a certain level of leadership, rule of law, good governance, prudent utilization of public resources. A president who is willing to sacrifice, walk an extra mile. A president who is talking about proper priority agenda setting. A president, they know that when donors give money, their money will not be plundered. As a matter of fact, some of our major donors who had pulled out due to alleged corruption of the previous administration have since come back on stream full-time funding governmental programs. So, when the president is invited there, he is invited mainly as a speaker, because the world wants to use Zambia as a case study to show the rest of the continent that yes, you can also do it. Look, there was that European Commission Africa meeting. The president had to go there in person, and I must also here disclose that the president is leveraging upon his wealth of connections that he has had from his days at school in the UK, from his days in business. Some of these global leaders in the World Bank, in the IMF, in the European Commission, some of them are his colleagues. And so when they call these meetings, he has to go and engage them. For instance, that EU Commission Africa Summit. Zambia, through the president, negotiated to be given priority, to be taken as a case study for food production for Africa in anticipation of global food shortages. Zambia was picked as one of the 7 countries that the world will pilot, food production.
So, Honorable,
the president was there and made a case, before the international community.
So, Honorable,
not any of those that he will attend.
If I may make that a follow-up question, when the president was in the opposition together with yourselves, he condemned his predecessor that he was traveling too much. And as things would be, they compare the international travels that Chagwa Lungu made and what he has made. That condemnation of saying he's traveling and these ones are necessary. What's your comment?
Thank you very much, Pastor. I'm actually one of the culprits who was very loud complaining about the presidential trips of the former president, President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, together with my president, President HF. And we were not complaining about traveling by the president. We were complaining about the resources being expended in those travels without any spin-off benefit back to replace the wasted resources. You will recall that in addition to us criticizing the president's travels, we also even criticized the First Lady traveling to the United States of America to go and receive 4 second-hand fire tenders from a municipality, I think in Los Angeles, which had donated to Zambia. Imagine a municipality like Choma Municipal Council donates 4 second-hand fire tenders to another country. Then that country sends the First Lady to go and receive them, and it goes with a huge entourage with the expense of travel to America, outstripping the cost of purchasing new of those fire tenders. That is what we are complaining about. We were complaining about a president going with a huge delegation of friends and relatives, including party functionaries. Have you ever seen the president travel anywhere with the Secretary General of the UPND or any party official? Have you seen the president travel anywhere with grandchildren or nephews and nieces and uncles? Zero. Because he knows that this is taxpayers' money. If I want my family to visit elsewhere, I must find my own means. That is what we were criticizing. The president going to Saudi Arabia to go and negotiate government-to-government export of fuel. And that fuel, by the way, was actually shipped by the government Republic of Saudi Arabia and marooned at Dar es Salaam, because the Zambian government, with the deals it was involved in with other fuel suppliers, could not allow that fuel to come on board so that others who had vested interest could continue supplying. And the cost of maintaining that ship marooned for more than 2 months, even went on to outstrip the value of the fuel it contained. Those are the issues we were criticizing, Pastor, and not just a travel. It was a travel associated with the non-profitable, movements. Today, we can do a checklist. Wherever the president goes, transactions follow. The president recently visited China. A week later, a huge business delegation of the Chinese followed to come and hammer out transactions. Memorandum of understanding were signed. Companies coming to set up at the Mount Facility Zone in Chibombo were on hand to come and see for themselves and spend down agreements there. They want to begin value addition to our minerals, such as manufacturing of lithium batteries, whose production that company is setting up this coming February 2024.
Honorable, I visited Saudi Arabia, and you saw the billions of dollars that was a committed. Is it Saudi Arabia or Qatar? His preceding trip to Germany. Which dollars are coming to be invested in the energy sector to bolster the energy sector in anticipation of climate change challenges and therefore reduced production of electricity with our existing capacity. Today we saw German Chancellor announce 4 billion euros coming to Zambia to be invested. These are the issues we were talking about, that when the president travels, there must be value for money. So when you look at the expenditure of the president going to Germany, going to Qatar, and you look at the investment portfolios that are coming through, going to China, clearly the expense of traveling becomes nothing. Additional to those
pronounced portfolios of investment flows that are coming to Zambia. The president, as #1, sales person for Zambia, is marketing Zambia's tourism potential. You have seen that even presidents who come to visit Zambia, like President Kagame, like Metarazi, the president of Italy, they are encouraged to visit our tourism sites. After the president has already marketed Zambia abroad, we are on the right trajectory. In business, for you to come up where you are there, Camnet, I'm here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. You are able to transmit live discussion like this one from Addis Ababa. You have made investments. I don't think that when you just opened, you had the capacity that you have. But you have had to sacrifice, to die a little, to put in more, so that next time you are where you are, it will be better. Today, we are asking citizens that let's tighten our belts. Let's invest a little bit more in those activities, ventures, in those presidential trips that will bring value to Zambia. I have no doubt in my mind that those pronounced portfolio investments coming through to Zambia, and given the way the government is allocating public resources through the national budget, the CDF projects that have becoming epidemic across the country. Now every member of parliament in the last 2 years of New Dawn administration has commissioned more CDF projects in 2 years than they ever did in the last 10 years of the previous administration. And I can now bet, for the very first time, there will be a huge return rate of members of parliament, regardless of political party, in 2026, because members of parliament now have become more relevant to the electorate. They have projects almost every day to show for it. Parliament had to ban Zoom attendance of members of parliament because parliamentarians were not sitting in the house. They are always commissioning projects. They are always monitoring projects across the country. Such is a Zambia which is now on a footing of development that we call upon all our citizens that for once, let us have a national dream that Zambia can be better. And to do that, it starts with a mindset in various sectors, but particularly in the political arena, that there should be time for politics anticipate to elections. And once elections are over, let us all remove these gowns of competition and put on garments of complementation, so that a government that is in power at a given time can do their best. We can give them all the ideas and hold them accountable so that we better the livelihoods of our people. So that next time an election opportunity comes, those who are competing should be able to say, you saw what we did. We were with these people. We gave them all the ideas that they needed to turn around the situation of our country. Our advice fell on deaf ears. We think that since they can't listen, we ask you citizens that you remove them and try us. That is the Zambia we envisage. The America we admire. We admire American democracy. Who tells anyone that we cannot be as democratic as America?
Honorable.
We have President Trump appearing before courts of law. In Zambia, for the first time, we have a former president who has not been arrested. President Chiluba arrested President Kaunda. President Mwanawasa arrested President Chiluba. President Michael Sata arrested President Rupia Bani. President Lungu is the first one not to be arrested. President HH is not the first one not to target his predecessor, notwithstanding whatever he did. And he said, I'm doing it in national interest. We must open a new page for country One where those who serve in government and are voted out, they are voted, they should not be scared for their peace and security, thinking that from State House, their next State House is prison, is Mukobeko. That is a country that President HH is setting as a new foundation going forward. That is the reason why in his first victory acceptance speech, the president told his cadres, I don't want to see any cadre attack PF cadres who were humiliating you, beating you, insulting you, calling you all sorts of names, banning your regalia, even to the extent of killing some of your friends. Anybody who is going to violate the law, to be involved in political violence, you are on your own.
Honorable.
So that first time, no political retribution at the occasion of change of government. Zambia is on the move. This is a new beginning.
Honorable, I am so thankful. I'm going to allow my director to just run one text message after another for your meditation. I don't know what he has received. There will be no comment. After he runs, you hear what other people also think as they were coming. I'll ask him to run 6. If you can take note of the, maybe what the director will show us, Honorable, it will be for your good, because I always say that in every criticism there is a grain of truth. That's your view. You've made it very clear, and I'm so grateful for the space that you've given democratically, that we are able to debate and heading to bigger countries like America, where we must be feeling free without the fear that I will be arrested. Mr. Director, please give me one text after another, and I want the Honorable Minister to just take note of this. Good evening, Minister. What is the government position on completing Bangweulu Hospital, which has been under construction but now abandoned in Lupososhi district? 2, Lupososhi was declared district in 2018, but nothing is happening, and officers are operating in Luwingu district, which is 60 kilometers from the proposed Boma. What is the government's position? John Wapaweti from Lupososhi district, Northern Province. Another text. Your president promised a 25 kg bag of mealie meal, 50 kwacha. Where is it? Fuel at 12, a bag of fertilizer at 250. Where is it now? Good evening, Honorable Minister. Have you apologized to the Catholic bishops for calling them Lucifers? Let me say this to this text, that don't move it, Mr. Director. When you say your president promised, I think whether, like I said, whether you don't support the president of the day or whether you support the president of the day, once a person gets into State House, is a president of Zambia. So as we are growing in democracy, it's important to just say our president. Then you put down what you have to say. Thank you, Mr. Director. The third one. Good evening, Pastor Chuba and Honorable MWEETWA. Why is it that the way gold and other expensive, I think, minerals are being mined currently? Is it not different from the way it was mined during the PF administration? Let me read that again. Why is it that the way gold and other expensive are being mined currently is it not different from the way it was mined during the PF administration? Mulenga F from Russia. UPND people of Zambia loves you, and we want you to govern this nation up to 2050. Please stop doing what PF were doing to do to you and to the people of Zambia. Thank you. This is Mwila in Namwala. Okay. Another one, Mr. Director, good evening. Has the minister read Mr. Lungu's resignation letter to Cabinet Secretary? The content says he has stepped down, but has condition of until, which until never happened, except one contestant lifted the championship as non-contest. Is the government considering buying more police vehicles for constituencies like Mandevu, which has more than 10 police stations? I submit. The last two, Mr. Director. Good evening, Honorable and Minister Government Chief Spokesman person, and my favorite, Pastor Chiluba. I want to thank the New Dawn government for the efforts being directed to improving our country through various economic interventions they have embarked on. I hear the minister addressing the recruitment of teachers. Why can't the government prioritize putting on payroll volunteer teachers in various community schools? The last one, Mr. Director. Can Honorable Minister share with people what articles and clauses in the National Constitution is UPND government want to amend? Honorable Minister, is your government aware that I am one of the retirees, 2013, others inclusive of course, that still owned the levy terminal benefits? When will we get paid? I think this is Eddie in Serenge. Honorable Minister, that is food for your thought. I'm sure you've gone through, and those that are for you and those that are against you, remember we are all Zambians. You are in government, and we should develop Zambia, because Zambia is for Zambians. UPND is the 7th President HH is the 7th president. If Jesus doesn't come, there will be more, but let's focus on Zambia. I want to thank you, Mr. Honorable Minister, and wish you a successful trip. Thank you for making an appearance on Camnet TV. I don't know if you have 1 minute to say to the people of Zambia.
Thank you so much. Just a quick one on important issues. Number one, a letter written by President Lungu to step down.
No, those ones, the Honorable, they are just for your thought. You don't comment. I just put them for you as part of your research paper and everything.
It's a very important one, Pastor, because I just wanted to, and now I'm speaking as a lawyer, to help the person who raised that issue to say, yes, it could have been couched in terms of stepping down, but the moment he began to receive benefits of a former president, it means whether he did not actually step down or not, the law deems him to have stepped down at that particular moment. Well, from my ending comment, Pastor, is to thank you for giving the opportunity that we, as New Dawn administration, can be heard on this important platform, National Matters. The work you are doing is very, very important, and I must indicate that the Government Republic of Zambia is grateful to the manner in which you conduct your broadcasting, ensuring that the tone of participants on the radio is managed. If all TV and radio stations across the country were managing their participants that way, we would have civil language dominate political discussions in this country, thereby raising a new breed and generation of political participants, those who will know that democracy is anchored on holding divergent views yet coexisting. I would therefore want to call upon the business community to support TV stations like yourself by taking their adverts. That is the only way they will be paying back to society for having channels like this one that are helping to bring up a generation of citizens anchored on morality and Christian values and civility in politics. I thank you for the opportunity to have contacted and interviewed me from here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We wish you a successful trip once again. May God bless you. May God bless your family behind here, and may God bless your administration. Well, dear COMNET TV viewers, we have come to the end of our national matters this Monday. On behalf of my wife, Pastor Victoria Chiluba, the CEO of this great channel, on behalf of Mr. Isaac Chifita, the director, Elias, and all of you COMNET TV crew members, you are the best that God has given my wife and I. We thank you. To all of you that are watching this broadcast and the church leadership, may I simply say, may God bless you. Keep watching COMNET TV, and remember, COMNET TV is not just another channel. Bye-bye.